I recently joined my mission, so my ambassador is yes.
Oh.
I think we got with the WTO, there was a training, and I think he's doing WTO, so he'll come next.
Please give him my best,
For sure.
and thank you so much for contributing.
Yes, yes. It is a pleasure actually for the initiative from your side. Yeah.
It's our joint initiative.
Yes, yes.
First ladies out there.
Yes.
And,
Are committed also with the, yeah.
I think this is for the moderator, not us, right? Yeah, I give it. So.
Excellencies, dear delegates, welcome to this side event, the 77th session of the Human Rights Council, where we are going to discuss toxics, zero waste, and women from a human rights perspective. This event is convened by the permanent missions of Turkey, Sierra Leone, and Suriname, together with the Geneva Environment Network and the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights. The event is co-sponsored by Vietnam, Bangladesh, and the Philippines, all members of the core group on climate and human rights. It is also co-sponsored by Panama and Costa Rica, members of the core group on plastics and human rights, and Costa Rica is also a member of the core group on human rights and the environment. As are the Maldives, also co-sponsoring this event, and we will close the list of co-sponsors by mentioning the Dominican Republic. I am Eric Sawyer, the coordinator of the UNEP-led Geneva Environment Network, bringing together the actors, institutions of International Geneva contributing to advance the global environmental agenda, to tackle the triple planetary crisis of climate change, nature and biodiversity loss, as well as pollution. I will have the pleasure to moderate this event. So we would like to start by thanking the permanent mission of Turkey to have taken the lead in proposing this event and also on promoting the zero waste approach in international Geneva and beyond. Turkey is indeed one of the leaders of the zero waste movement and the leadership of the First Lady, Her Excellency Emin Erdogan, who is chairing the United Nations Secretary General Advisory Board on Zero Waste, is also to be highlighted. The First Ladies of Sierra Leone and of Suriname are also members of the important Advisory Board on Zero Waste. The zero waste approach aims to solve the waste pollution crisis through enabling more environmentally friendly consumption and promoting a circular economy and the life cycle approach. It refers to reversing the trend of unsustainable production and overconsumption. Hazardous substances, toxics, and wastes and human rights are one of the main environmental themes of the Council September session, with the presentation of the United Nations Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights annual report to the Council. This is an opportunity to advance the zero waste agenda through synergies among stakeholders and a better outreach on the environmental agenda of the Council. Today, we are indeed joined online by the Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights, Marcos Orellana, not to discuss the report that he will be presenting to this session. For that report, a few events taking place next week. But we are discussing today the findings of the report that the Special Rapporteur will be presenting to the 79th session of the United Nations General Assembly in New York. As you will hear from the Special Rapporteur, his report highlights the differentiated and unequally distributed harms resulting from exposure to hazardous substances and waste pollution, and how women and girls are highly affected to the exposure. The Special Rapporteur stresses in his report that the human rights-based approach to women in vulnerable situations in respect to toxic exposures is necessary, and he highlights other messages that we will soon hear. So you will hear from the Special Rapporteur after you are formally welcome to this event by the permanent representatives of Turkey, Sierra Leone, and Suriname. After the intervention of the Special Rapporteur, I will also have the pleasure to introduce you to leading voices that are here on this panel and online to discuss women and zero waste from a human rights perspective. And I will introduce them as I give them the floor. So now let me turn to the three members states co-convening this event. We will first hear from His Excellency Ambassador Sapar, the permanent representative of Turkey to the United Nations here in Geneva. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you, Diana. Thank you, Diana. Excellencies, distinguished panelists, dear friends. I would like to warmly welcome you all to this side event. I wish to thank all the speakers and panelists for joining us today. I'm honored to be here today alongside Sierra Leone and Suriname, whose First Ladies, together with our First Lady, are pursuing a great mission as they serve on the UN Secretary General's Advisory Board of Eminent Persons on Zero Waste. The Zero Waste movement tackles the waste pollution crisis by promoting more environmentally friendly consumption patterns and advancing a circular economy. The members of the advisory board promote local and national zero waste initiatives through awareness raising and best practice sharing towards implementation of General Assembly resolution presented by Turkey and supported by 105 co-sponsor countries. We're confident that the implementation of the UN Zero Waste resolution at national and global levels will contribute to combating climate change, achievement of sustainable development goals, and promotion of human rights, particularly the right to healthy environment. Women's role in this movement is indispensable. Harms caused by toxics, pollution, and waste disproportionately impact on women. At the same time, women are putting forward effective solutions to environmental challenges and pioneering zero waste practices. We're delighted to partner with Special Rapporteur Marcos Orellana and Geneva Environment Network for supporting this side event and have such distinguished panelists among us. I look forward to this panel and their presentations. Welcome again, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Excellency. So next to co-welcome you to this event, we are joined by His Excellency Ambassador Lansana Gwerie, the permanent representative of Sierra Leone to the United Nations in Geneva. Excellency, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Diana. Thank you. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, it is a real pleasure for me and my delegation to join Turkey and Suriname in co-sponsoring this very important side event. The intention, obviously, is to remind all of us about the obligation we owe under the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development to achieve a healthy and livable environment for all communities. In its 2021 Global Chemicals and Waste Indicator Review document, UNEP detailed the severe threats to public health and the environment that go with the failure to properly manage waste, including toxic waste. A very important highlight of this report, and that is not surprising, but it's still quite staggering. All the same, is that the exposure to toxics and harmful waste affects women and girls significantly differently and in more adverse ways than they do men. This is largely because of gender roles that all societies have conflicted over decades or centuries. In Sierra Leone, and as in most LDCs, dump sites and industrial areas previously located out of human settlements have now been overtaken by rapid urbanization. This is a situation throughout urban settlements in the country. The immediate impact is a strain on solid waste management in the country and an exposure to hazardous industrial waste and toxins. The environment and communities in mining areas, and Sierra Leone is both an agrarian and mining country, are particularly vulnerable to this kind of exposure. But also communities around the informal sector, like the textile industry, which is completely dominated by women, have been particularly vulnerable in large part because of the processing of fabrics that make up Gara, which if you've been to Sierra Leone, is a local favorite in terms of fabric, especially for women. Involves a mixture of harmful chemicals. Appropriate disposal systems are almost completely lacking. Moreover, in most cases, women are the cooks, the home cleaners, including handling laundry, detergents, and the gardeners involved with fertilizers and pesticides. In the mining areas, women mostly rework previous mine sites, foraging for possible leftover minerals like diamonds and gold, and sometimes toxic environments. This situation may be worse in industrialized communities. Recycling has not eliminated these problems. This is why Sierra Leone, Turkey, and Suriname, led by our first ladies, who are deeply committed to this effort. We're trying to mitigate this problem, pushing the agenda of our first ladies as members of the Secretary General's Advisory Board on Zero Waste. Have collaborated with the UN Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights and the Geneva Environment Network to increase global awareness of this problem and call for action to save our communities and the environment from further destruction and degradation. I'm honored, ladies and gentlemen, to get my colleagues in welcoming you to this very timely event, and I hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And last, to welcome you to this event, we have a video message from His Excellency Ambassador Ahoy Kumar Jado Nisha, who is the foreign representative of Suriname to the United Nations here in Geneva. And on the podium, we are joined by Janice Aladdin from the Foreign Mission later on for the discussion. So let's now play the video message. Thank you.
Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen. It would have been a great honor to deliver these welcome remarks in person at this side event focuses on toxic zero waste, women and human rights in collaboration with our friends from the Republic of Türkiye and Sierra Leone. I am grateful for the advanced technology which gives me the opportunity to still address you on this special occasion. At the outset, the Republic of Suriname commends this joint effort pledged by the Republic of Türkiye and First Lady, Her Excellency Emma Erdogan, and therefore wishes to acknowledge the eminent role in supporting initiatives aiming for a zero waste world in this context. As a member of the Advisory Board of Eminent Persons on Zero Waste, our First Lady, Her Excellency Melissa Santoki Senacheri, has actively been involved in many initiatives such as the reusable sanitary project for young girls, contributing towards environmental sustainability. Waste management is one of the biggest challenges in the world. Therefore, it requires the urgency to create more awareness and act upon reversing waste through enabling environmental sustainability and zero waste lifestyle approaches. Distinguished participants, I encourage you to actively participate in the panel discussion, utilize the expertise and best practices from the different panel members in order to set up a tone on how we can continue to expand our cooperation for future opportunities. I wish you a constructive session and kindly thank you for your attention.
Much to Their Excellencies. So before we move to the Special Rapporteur and hear from him the findings of his report, we will have opening remarks by Her Excellency Maynur Ozdemir Goktas, who is the Minister of Family and Social Services of Turkey. And she has pre-recorded her message that we will now play.
Esteemed ministers, distinguished representatives, dear participants, it's a great privilege to address you today at the side event on toxic, zero waste, women and human rights on the margin of 57th regular session of the Human Rights Council. I hope that this council will provide an opportunity to make beneficial decisions. Regrettably, even in the 21st century, various regions of our world continues to face diverse challenges. Today, the negative impacts of pollution and the climate change influence women and children the most. Distinguished participants, as I well know, with the increasing industrialization, we are more frequently confronted with situations that negatively affect women and public health. The ever-growing issue of transboundary pollution is causing severe degradation of the nature. In addition, it's undoubtedly clear that the climate change is a problem that seriously affects ecosystems and threatens human health. Unfortunately, we observe these negative impacts more distinctly and seriously on women. We know that this pollution negatively affects women's reproductive health, leading to serious complications during childbirth and increasing the risk of cancer. Women who bear a significant portion of the caregiving burden also face increased demands in managing the well-being of other family members affected by environmental pollution. Especially in rural areas, soil and water pollution also makes it particularly harder for women to meet their basic needs, especially food. Environment issues exacerbate existing inequalities in sectors such as agriculture and farming, where women are predominantly employed from crop cultivating to harvesting. Consequently, the environment pollution and hazardous waste problems also emerge as the additional burdens on social justice and equality. We all know very well that increasing women's voices in this field will provide a fair, equitable, and sustainable decision-making framework that will shape the future of our planet. As policymakers, we must address the environmental pollution not only in terms of reducing the problems it causes, but also by ensuring the active participation of women in leadership roles in addressing the root causes of the pollution. Dear participants, I would like to emphasize that under the leadership of President His Excellency Recep Tayyip Erdoğan, Turkey has taken decisive steps in combating the environmental pollution and climate change, leading an effective strategy tailored to its national conditions. The Zero Waste project, implemented under the auspices of First Lady Her Excellency Emine Erdoğan, which began in Turkey and has now gained a global momentum, also clearly demonstrates Turkey's commitment to environmental sustainability. Especially on this issue, prioritizing women's rights is one of our important agenda topics. Within this scope, in line with the Beijing Declaration and the Sustainable Development Goals, we continue our efforts tirelessly. We have made significant progress in achieving equality between women and men and empowering women in the context of climate change. Environment and climate change is one of the main policy dimensions of our new strategy documents and action plan for women's empowerment for the year 2024 and 2028. Furthermore, we are continuously encouraging women to engage in entrepreneurship and strengthening women's cooperatives. With the empowerment of women through cooperatives project, we organize training programs for women on contemporary issues such as food safety. We provide consultancy to women's cooperatives in areas such as product development and branding besides food safety. Moreover, we continue to promote the rural women entrepreneurship through incentives and support programs. In addition to all these activities, we will soon launch the research on the impacts of climate change on women project. Dear participants, empowering women is critical for building a more fair and sustainable future. We believe that increasing women's participation in leadership and decision-making positions contributes to the societal progress by fostering creative solutions and innovative ideas. I sincerely hope that our meeting today will contribute to this goal. With these thoughts in mind, I greet you all once again.
So thank you very much to Her Excellency. Now that Their Excellencies have helped us setting the scene to the discussion we will soon have, it's our pleasure to turn to the UN Special Rapporteur on Toxics and Human Rights, Marcos Orellana, who is joining us online and who will guide us through the findings of this report. Marcos, the floor is yours.
This is a concept addressed in collaboration with the Special Rapporteur in our thematic report on a toxic-free environment, a substantive element of the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment. There's no doubt that this stage, given the evidence that we as humanity are living in an unprecedented crisis of chemicals and wastes. This crisis is inflicting harm to countless individuals and communities, causing and deepening injustices in healthy lives, reproduce and have healthy newborns and cannot. The resulting gender and sex-related harms from exposure to hazardous substances include infertility, miscarriage, stillbirth, premature birth or low birth weight, cancers, and metabolic disorders across society. And this has great implications for the rights to health, to family life, to physical and mental integrity, and to a clean, healthy, and sustainable. In the face of the situation, we are compelled to adopt a human rights-based approach. And that is an approach that leads us to look at reality from the perspective of persons that may be in vulnerable situations. And in that regard, women and girls are especially affected by toxic exposures for biological reasons, but also because they do more caregiving work. Reproductive systems are particularly susceptible to endocrine disrupting chemicals, many of which are sourced from petrochemicals, which contribute to the rising rates of pain, underdiagnosed reproductive diseases. The emotional devastation that follows fertility or stillbirth is often ignored by public health systems. The impacts on women also have implications. Maternal exposures can also affect and harm the fetus and thereby affect lifelong health of both the birthing person and the offspring. In addition, some hazardous chemicals also have transgenerational effects, raising sobering issues of intergenerational equity. These issues also need to be looked at with an approach of intersectionality. So, for example, women and girls living in poverty, the issues of literacy and opportunities to learn about risks. Women and girls living in sacrifice zones of fence-line communities in industrial areas, other areas that are experiencing intolerable levels of pollution, that are experiencing systematic denial of the right to a healthy environment. Also, women and girls working with hazardous chemicals. We just heard about the agricultural sector. We can talk about the electronics sector, where a single electronic product can contain more than 1,000 hazardous chemicals, many of which carcinogenic, mutagenic, reproductive disorder, causing these productive disorders as well. The waste management sector, women exposed to dioxins and furans, for many women doing work that's often considered female work, such as cleaning and using cleaning products that can also hazardous. In addition to work, women and girls that consume hazardous products. Scientific evidence has found lead and arsenic in menstrual products, for example, tampons. The presence of mercury in skin lightening creams has also been documented, and there's some action in the Minamata Convention on mercury. So in the face of these impacts, in the face of these differentiated impacts based on sex and gender, I proposed and sent a report to the UN General Assembly. We'll present a report in October 18th. In that report, I examined the scientific and other evidence concerning these issues. To conclude, time, women's bodies and reproductive health are particularly vulnerable to chemical exposure, and therefore the importance of initiatives such as zero waste cannot be understated. Governments should tackle the chemical and waste exposure issues in a differentiated manner. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you very much, Mr. Special Rapporteur. So now to reflect on what you have presented, the findings of your report to the General Assembly, and continue this discussion, we are joined, as I mentioned earlier, by leading voices. And we start by giving the floor to Mrs. Gutepe, who is the Deputy Director General of the Ministry of Environment, Urbanizations and Climate Change of Turkey, who is joining us online. So I'm giving you the floor.
In the event on behalf of the Ministry of Environment, Urbanization and Climate Change. First of all, I would like to thank the organization of this site event at the margin of the session of the Human Rights Council, which will remind us the strong relationship between environment and human rights. Its constitution says that everyone has the right to live in a healthy environment, and environmental law is prepared under this framework. We always bear this fact in mind and work hard to improve environmental quality for our citizens. Almost the population of the world is increasing rapidly. Our need for resources also increases. In particular, the increase in resource use combined with the increase in waste and emissions has caused several negative situations such as climate change, water scarcity, and air pollution, and unfortunately disrupted the balance in the ecosystem. In this sense, the Zero Waste project carried out in our country under the leadership of First Lady, Her Excellency Mrs. Emine Erdoğan, with the vision of transition to circular economy and understanding that waste is a resource. Provide cities and living environments where people live a high quality of life, healthy ecosystems, and provide solutions to global problems. Inspirations, Mother Nature, which has settled into our language, beautifully reveals the interaction between woman, nature, and environment. Today, I would like to talk about the story of zero waste movement, specifically used globally. Has two main pillars. The first one is the prevention of waste generation. In the past, there was of waste and created inevitability. And gentlemen, the history of these movements. The whole story began in September 2017 with a general kickoff meeting. Now it's 7-year-old project. For 100 programs, including panels, summits, conferences, and case studies were held. Fourth project needs well-designed legislation across the growth pathway. Environmental law was revised to close certain gaps to be aligned with this zero-waste idea. In high-level strategies and development plans of our country. These were produced by the revision of law, like a review plus review base. And putting to form. Was given to a company. If people know, the best way to impact the people. Based on this fact, several ways to art exhibitions are organized to get more attention for the project. Other than the main responsibility for management is the local authority. The waste management system has been prepared by our 81 provinces in order to ensure the sustainability and efficiency of this zero waste project. All stakeholders like industry, commerce, local authorities, academia, and NGOs gave their full support. What is the open for all? Who can be? There's no loser in this moment. After all, we can achieve the recycling rate of 35% by 2023, which was just 15% at the time of the beginning of project. Goal is capture rate as 6% by 2035. We believe we can achieve this target. A total of approximately half of the cycle waste can be processed and turned into economy. 2017, number of buildings, campuses, integrated with zero waste management systems has reached approximately 200,000 actually. Now, 98 million trees and 6 million tons of greenhouse gas emissions were prevented. Finally, by reusing 6 billion tons of waste, we managed to return $6 billion to our economy. Ambassador mentioned in his opening speech, 2022 was the year for the zero waste project moment. It has already spread out globally. The point that the complete zero waste is not just a waste collection or recycling program. It's the elimination of waste in the full life cycle. So the government, the managers of houses, play an active role in global zero waste movement, aim to manage the triple planetary crisis without leaving anyone behind. With the goal of living reliable and sustainable world for future generations, especially for our children. I would like to reiterate that both women and global citizens, we are open to conversation with taking oriented steps to address the global climate crisis and environmental pollution issues. I would like to thank the embassies and UN Geneva Environment Network once more for bringing us together and wish a successful event for everyone. As I conclude my words with these feelings and thoughts, I would like to thank and respect you.
Thank you very much for providing a historical look at the zero waste agenda in Turkey and beyond. Now we are coming back to this room and the other leading voices that have joined us today to discuss the advancement of the right to a healthy environment through zero waste and the United Nations Environment Program perspective on women, chemicals, waste and pollution action. We are joined by Arnold Kruijhuber, who is the director for the Pan-European region of the United Nations Environment Program. Mr. Kruijhuber, you have the floor.
Thank you very much, Diana. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, colleagues, dear friends. First of all, let me say thank you for giving UNEP this opportunity to share our perspectives on the right to a healthy environment through our lens, primarily through our work on pollution action and how we support the zero waste approach and to address the waste pollution crisis. Before I would like to share a few observations with you that I've already taken away from the very interesting reflections that we've already heard. Let me also thank the governments of Turkey, Sierra Leone and Suriname for their leadership and all the other co-sponsors who have made it possible that we can have this discussion here today, which again, I believe is a very important one. And the first point that I would like to reiterate is one that has been mentioned by Her Excellency Minister Göktaş already, and that is that while of course the focus of this discussion today is on hazardous substances and waste and their impacts on everyone's right to a healthy environment, we cannot look at these issues in isolation. So from UNEP's perspective, I would like to reiterate that pollution and waste is very much linked to the triple planetary crisis, which also includes biodiversity and nature loss and climate change. These phenomena or these crises that we face are deeply interlinked, and they unfortunately reinforce each other's impacts and often exacerbating existing inequalities, including gender inequalities, and disproportionately affecting negatively women and girls. The second point that I would like to reiterate is that we live in a waste crisis. And unfortunately, the otherwise very successful economic model or the successful linear economic model has run its course and has unfortunately resulted in generating more and more waste, more and more complex waste, with many communities and countries now being unable to manage this waste in a sustainable fashion. And consequently, again, this waste crisis that we face has many, many impacts on air, land, and water, on human health, as we already heard from the Special Rapporteur. And again, it impacts on the other crises that we face, not least the global climate crisis. An important point as we are increasingly gearing up for COP29 later this year in Baku in Azerbaijan. Globally, some 15 million people earn a fragile livelihood collecting recyclable waste from streets and dump sites and returning it to the value chain. And ironically, of course, these people are also the least likely to benefit from a waste management service and are the most likely to live in areas that are polluted by poorly managed waste. Less than a year ago, UNEP published a contribution to the zero waste goal, a catalyst for delivering the Sustainable Development Goals report. And in this report, we set out how improved resource efficiency and ensuring universal access to waste management services can actually improve lives. The report, which again, hopefully will remain a tool on this path towards zero waste, describes how waste management is linked to the Sustainable Development Goals and discusses relevant human rights, gender, poverty, and health issues in the informal waste sector. Earlier this year, when we celebrated Zero Waste Day in March, UNEP launched its latest edition of the Global Waste Management Outlook. And this outlook also provides an overview of this current waste management crisis that we face on a global scale, as well as scenarios for future waste management. It urges particularly to look at the hidden costs of poor waste management. And when facing these hidden costs of pollution, poor health, climate change impacts from poor waste disposal practices, the costs of waste management or the impacts of poor waste management rise to $361 billion. That's a significant amount, and this amount could rise further until 2050 if we don't do anything about it. But importantly, what this report also finds is that one of the barriers to move towards circularity and environmentally sound waste management is the lack of gender considerations and the inclusion of the informal waste sector. UNEP has developed many reports like this, many tools, many resources. Other institutions and partners have done similarly. And these tools and resources include the aspects we're discussing here today in terms of integrating gender aspects in our actions to curb the global waste crisis. The point being that we know what to do. We just have to enhance our collective commitment to really deliver meaningful action on the ground. The UNG resolution to the right, on the right to a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is only beginning. It requires also this commitment from all of us to action, and it requires commitment from countries and stakeholders alike to implement the existing goals and obligations that have been taken in many environmental fields, as I have explained, but not least also the Global Chemicals Framework, which was adopted just last year in Bonn, which aims to strengthen precisely these important linkages between chemicals and waste management, health and labor policies, and human rights. It is also vital, ladies and gentlemen, that we deliver a meaningful, fair, and just plastics treaty by the end of the year. You may be aware that the fifth and final session of the International Negotiating Committee is scheduled to take place from 25th November to 1st December in Busan, in the Republic of Korea. We have already heard what the impacts of our linear economic model are in this crisis, and addressing plastics is a very important, very vital resource, but one that we treat quite carelessly. It's very, very important in this context. Another point that I would like to mention is that the 2022 UNGA resolution, which laid the foundation for the UN Secretary General's advisory report on zero wastes, is a very important foundation to allow us to make very important linkages in terms of strengthening the participation of women in the waste sector, and to make sure that these actions lead to more efficient and effective waste management operations. We have already heard women have the knowledge, they have the expertise in this area as primary users of waste management services at many levels, including the household levels. They are engaged in many different aspects of the waste sector. So bringing the expertise and the knowledge of women in to this is very, very vital. Women are also, in many cases, the agents of change in moving forward to a more efficient, more effective, and sustainable waste management. A gender-inclusive circular economy creates, therefore, safer, more formalized opportunities for women in green industry like sustainable manufacturing, recycling, and renewable energy. But involving women, girls, emphasizing the gender equality aspects in our efforts towards zero waste are also good business. If we succeed to do so, the world can unlock an annual net economic gain of $108.5 billion. So it's not just the right thing to do, it's also the good business to do it. So, ladies and gentlemen, let me conclude by saying again that everyone has the right to a healthy environment, free of exposure to toxic chemicals and waste, and we have the knowledge and the tools to make it happen. I look forward to our discussion today for advancing the zero waste agenda and the promotion of environmentally friendly consumption and the circular economy. I wish all of us a very successful meeting today. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Karl. We are now continuing the reflection with the other panelists who have joined us today, but I will have to be more strict with time because we will definitely be over time. So next is Maria Paula Lia, who is the Executive Director of the Global Alliance on Health and Pollution. Maria Paula, you have the floor.
Thank you. First of all, let me thank the organizer and Turkey, of course, Suriname and Sierra Leone for being here, and I'll try to be very straight to the point in the interest of time. So first of all, I'd like to introduce ourselves. We are the Global Alliance on Health and Pollution. We are a global organization of 70 members and observers, including 30 countries, amongst them many low and middle income countries, and some of them I'm very glad to see here today amongst us. We work in Geneva, we're established as a Geneva Foundation, so legally registered in Switzerland, but actually there is a small secretariat here, and then we'd like to work directly with the leadership of countries under upon request of countries who are the main supporters of the alliance, as well as the one to whom we provide expertise. In fact, we work in two main areas. One is global advocacy. We are UNEP observer members to supervise a number of international treaties, and we provide technical expertise to countries that are required to do so. For example, during the PRS Convention, the Basel Project, the Stockholm Convention, but also we provide country-specific support. Here you can see some of our partners and supporters. Next slide, please. And I think today the main theme of this discussion is, how do we look at gender equity and social inclusion, which is at the core of what we do, because of course by tackling pollution issues having an impact on health outcomes, we put the emphasis on many aspects. And one is certainly poverty alleviation, the role of women, but also, all the population that are affected the most by pollution, which has a direct impact on our health. And in 2022, the United Nations General Assembly declared that a clean, healthy, and sustainable environment is a human right. And I think today everybody agrees, and the speeches that I heard are really aligned with that. But unfortunately, we know that despite everybody agrees, and despite the resolution, and despite, as I heard today, there are many advantages, including economic advantages. Many countries and many areas of the world are still very affected by pollution. And in fact, we know that unfortunately, pollution kills 9 million people per year, which is a very, very, very high number. And unfortunately, 92% of the deaths occur in low and middle income countries, which is an indication of different factors. And one of which I stated in the beginning were about social inclusion, gender equality, were about sustainable development. I could address many different projects that we run. I could show you, I heard today women working in agricultural sector, pesticide, I heard toxic chemicals, which is all part of our agenda. But today I want to speak about our theory of change, and one of the models that we use and that has been shown to be effective in all the sectors where we work with and where we work in, which is basically putting health and pollution action planning at the core and building political consensus and capacity to achieve the result. So with this theory of change, today I will present what we call Health and Pollution Action Plan. This is our main model of work. We have been running this program in more than 13 countries today, including Azerbaijan. I see a representative of Azerbaijan here, I will connect later. But also many others like Cambodia, Indonesia, and so on. And at the core of this model, which is very simple but very effective, there is a collaboration with the countries because, as I mentioned, we are a collaborative alliances. We are not here to dictate or to show how to do and what to do to countries, because most of the time the expertise already relying within your countries, and you are the one who know the best what and how you can do it. But sometimes there are different circumstances, and sometimes what we believe is that it's very useful when somebody drive a process in a collaborative way. And this is our approach with the Health and Pollution Action Plan, which is actually a multi-stakeholder group. So we bring together Ministry of Health, because health is a very important component of our work, because we tackle toxic pollution, which has an impact on health outcomes first. Of course, we also look at economic factors, but health is our main factor. So we invite and involve Minister of Health, Minister of Environment, Minister of Transport and Water in certain countries, but also the private sector, university and local NGO, because we believe that this must be a concerted effort. And so this process actually look at all the existing policy in the countries and make sure that there is a prioritization done based on the risk having an impact on public health. And so with all this assessment and study, which is driven locally by the local government, we come up with what it is a prioritization and a roadmap addressing actually the main needs in country in a way that tackles health risk. And then the Alliance has also the duty to try to find financial support to help run some of these actions, some of the program designed by this roadmap, or at least pilot project, because some states have the capacity to implement at national level very incredible program having an impact nationally. We just heard Turkey and the zero waste program, and this is going to be scaled at national level. So, but sometimes you need to show that something can work effectively by starting with a pilot project. And so, why do we do this? I don't like to show these slides because it actually shows the number of deaths, previous slide, sorry, the number of deaths and compare deaths with diseases. And I think it's very sad to compare deaths, and all areas of work in diseases are equally important. But I've been working in infectious diseases before, and we used to speak a lot of, AIDS, HIV, malaria, tuberculosis, because those are infectious diseases, and countries try to invest because, of course, they see it as a threat. But when you see the number of deaths caused by pollution, which, as I mentioned, are 9 million per year, compared to TB, HIV, and malaria deaths compared overall, you see that actually there is a big discrepancy. But then when you look at the funds invested in pollution and the funds invested in infectious disease, you see that actually it's nothing. So this is also one of the reasons why, by doing what we do, we try to provide evidences and data to countries, because it's only by providing scientific evidence that country can invest the right resources and doing the right thing, which in return will have an economic benefit, as we heard today several times. This is the last slide. I think we can go to the portrait slides. Prior to this is the countries where we have been implemented an HPAP, an health and pollution action plan so far, but then we have also a presence in Latin America, in Vietnam, Uganda, in other countries where we run specific projects. And last, I want to conclude, just to try to stick to my 4 minutes, I'd like to conclude, maybe 5, sorry. I'd like to conclude and invite you all to visit our website and please come and speak to me, because we look for new members and you are all invited to join the Alliance. There is no fee to join the Alliance, but actually it comes with willingness and commitment to address pollution having an impact on health. And I want to congratulate you all for being here, because this is a great initiative. Thanks to Jen, and I hope I see more of this in future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Leone. So we will continue our reflections with UN Women perspective on advancing toxics and waste action, and we are joined by Adriana Quinones, who is the head of Human Rights and Development at UN Women here in Geneva. Adriana, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you very much, and excellencies, to the mission of Turkey, Suriname, and Sierra Leone for your leadership on this topic, to the co-sponsors, all the delegations that I see here, and the fellow panelists. It's wonderful to have this conversation. From our discussions today, we know that it's clear that to address the impact of hazardous substances and toxic waste cannot be fully effective without a gender and human rights perspective. The evidence from UN Women's work vividly demonstrates the differentiated and disproportionate impacts of substances on women and girls, and particularly those in vulnerable and marginalized situations, such as indigenous women, women living in poverty, migrant, women living in rural areas, women and girls with disabilities, elderly women, and those from racial and ethnic minorities. The Beijing Declaration that is going to celebrate its 30th year next 2025 acknowledges this disproportionate impact by noting that environmental risks in the home and workplace have a disproportionate impact on women's health because of women's different susceptibilities to toxics, to the effects of various chemicals. We celebrate that the linkages between gender and chemicals have been noted in several international processes on chemicals, waste, and pollution. And we want to note that in 2022, CSW agreed conclusions 66 further recognize that women often take the lead in promoting an environmental and ethic, reducing resource use and reusing and recycling resources to minimize waste and excessive consumption, and that women have a particular powerful role in influencing sustainable consumption decisions. So if we look at the context of women's poverty, of women's engagement in the labor markets, of women's decision making, we can make a real difference by partnering on this. With this growing global awareness of the gender impacts of chemicals on human health, that gender equality and the empowerment of women and girls can support the sound management of chemicals and wastes, UN Women in its mandate has strengthened its active role in advancing gender-sensitive approaches to address toxic and chemical waste, including through developing policy guidelines. We developed a joint paper with UNEP and the Office of the High Commissioner for Human Rights on the environment and gender equality, where we provide key messages for member states and stakeholders in the sector, including to take urgent, ambitious, and gender-responsive action to combat environmental crises, including gender-responsive just transitions to green and blue economies. Enact laws and policies that prevent gender-based discrimination and gender-based violence in environmental matters, further taking steps to fully understand and address the multiple and intersecting forms of discrimination women and girls face in relation to toxic waste. To take concrete steps to ensure women's equal, free, active, and meaningful and informed participation in decision-making processes related to the environment. To ensure gender-responsive access to justice and accountability for environmental harms, and adopt gender-responsive approaches to ensuring the right to health, including sexual and reproductive health in environmental action. And to collect and use sex disaggregated data and gender statistics to inform all these policy action and policies. The transition to a circular economy is a great opportunity to integrate gender-responsive approaches that empower women and recognize their critical roles as leaders and agents of change in environmental policies and practices. UN has taken and continues to take concrete steps to partner with governments and the private sector to make this a reality. One example is women's climate action and green and blue economies as a gender equality accelerator that we are promoting as part of the commemoration of Beijing 30 to promote responsive just transitions, to enable that women have access to new jobs, to new ways of integrating themselves in the economy, and with work in Asia Pacific, East and Southern Africa, and West and Central Africa with over 30 countries and counting. We also partnered with the Uniqlo Law, the Japanese retailer, to champion women's rights and empowerment in the apparel industry, where jobs are predominantly held by women. This includes programs to promote safe and secure work environments, to build the capacity of mid-career women workers to reach leadership positions, and to raise awareness on the importance of gender equality and women's empowerment among men in decision-making decisions. We have also supported women's empowerment through climate and resilient agriculture value chain in more than 50 African countries and reaching more than 17,000 women. And, you know, just to say that all the challenges that have been mentioned before to be addressed, the challenges of inequality that are reinforced by the environmental crisis will require a multifaceted and multi-stakeholder approach that acknowledges the interlinkages between gender equality, waste management, and that enhances women's full effective participation and equal opportunities for leadership at all levels. As the Special Rapporteur echoes in his call to states and stakeholders to apply a gender approach to enhancing participation. Gender mainstreaming approaches into policies can further increase investment resources And we make, again, the goal towards sex disaggregated data and gender statistics on the gender impact of toxics, particularly with respect to labor, equality, responsibility, and environmental management.
Thank you very much, Ms. Quinones. We have two more leading voices bringing more resources and expertise to this discussion. We will hear now from Benjamin Schachter, who is leading the environmental team at the Office of the High Commissioner on how we are advancing a rights-based approach to toxics and waste.
Thank you. Thank you to Turkey, Suriname, Sierra Leone, the other co-sponsors, the audience for sticking around a little bit longer, and all of my fellow panelists. I think it's somewhat appropriate that we have about zero time left here to talk about zero waste, because we should have stopped a long time ago. We have been continuously exceeding planetary boundaries for years with respect to consumption and production. You've heard a lot already. I'm going to try to be very quick and sort of cut the remarks I normally would have delivered and just focus on a few key points. First of all people, regardless of gender, have human rights and human dignity, and gender equality is a human rights. So pollution harms human rights. It has differential effects on the basis of gender. Most pollution results from the consumption of the richest people and countries. These are the same people and actors that experience it the least. The modern environmental justice movement, in fact, emerged in large measure to respond to this injustice. And so today, OHCHR works with waste pickers, with scientists, with indigenous peoples, with environmental human rights defenders, and all of the different elements of this movement to call for and advance rights-based environmental action. Reducing and even zeroing out waste requires that we address unsustainable consumption and production. And the waste crisis reflects and magnifies inequalities across our societies. We cannot do this unless we address inequalities, unless we address injustice. And that's why it's consistently found that rights-based and equity-based approaches lead to better and more effective outcomes with respect to the environment. And that's why it's so critical that in all of the different spaces and places where people and governments and other powerful actors are talking about waste and pollution, that human rights be part of the discussion. I also want to say, and I don't think we've talked about it a lot, the role of businesses is incredibly important. And when I say the role of businesses, I'm primarily referring to their role in causing the problem. We often talk about the role businesses can play in solving it, but we do not frequently enough talk about the accountability that there must be for businesses, for their contribution to environmental crises. So the human rights framework does this. The UN Guiding Principles on Business and Human Rights offer a roadmap to ensuring accountability for businesses and ensuring access to justice and effective remedy for people who are affected by pollution and environmental crises. There are a number of resources that we've developed, and I'm just going to flag two of them. One of them was already mentioned by my colleague from UN Women, Key Messages on Human Rights and Gender Equality, which is a UNEP, OHCHR, UN Women joint product. Another Key Messages on Human Rights and Hazardous Substances, which is an OHCHR and UNEP joint product. And I really encourage you to look for these and read them, because they articulate the key elements of a human rights-based approach. These are things that should be reflected in various discussions, Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention, in the context of implementing the Global Framework Convention, in the Minamata Convention, when we're talking about the work of an establishment of an open-ended working group, the establishment of a science policy platform on pollution, which is so important. It's important in that process to establish measures to protect scientists and independent science, that it really be based on evidence, the rights to access and information, that it be participatory and inclusive, because we can't make the right decisions about the environment or the planet unless we protect rights, particularly those of environmental human rights defenders, activists, scientists, etc. I will stop there. Look forward to continuing the conversation later.
Thank you very much, Ben. So we are now moving to the last leading voice in this panel, Camelia Kamileva. She's the co-director of the Global Cities Hub, and she will bring here the cities and local government perspective.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. And you gave me 10 seconds. I will take 2 minutes. And I will strive really to be concrete and to tackle the cities of the organizers of this side event with concrete examples, because I want you to remember my examples at the end of the meeting. So thank you very much, ambassadors of Turkey and Sierra Leone and Suriname, and especially Ambassador Hasan Bere, to mention the urbanization, because the urbanization, especially on your continent, is, as one of your colleagues said, the tsunami behind the corner. We don't experience this that much in Europe, but this is, you know, a global trend. In a couple of years, more than 70% of the people on the planet will live in cities. That's why it's very important, and what we are doing at the Global Cities Hub is giving the international floor, the voice of cities and local and regional governments on the international level. You mentioned disaggregated data. So waste management, just for us to realize, is very usually in the hands of the local and regional governments. We do policy on national level, but those who tackle the circular economy, day-to-day business in our lives, these are the local and regional governments on all the continents. And my favorite example is that consider that if you have a problem with waste, with recycling, with toxic, where you live, you will call your municipality. You will not call the capital of your country, and unfortunately not the UN. So it's very important to empower local and regional governments to understand what they are doing, and also to include them, like, for example, in national plans, but also in international negotiations, the one you mentioned on plastic pollution and others. I just looked in the internet in preparing this panel. In Turkey, there are lots of cities which are very forefront cities in waste management. Cities like Izmir, Antalya, Bursa, other coastal cities are very advanced in local solution in waste management. And this is very important to bring these examples also on international level. In other countries like Sierra Leone, there are like Freetown initiatives in cooperation with United Nations. For example, in Freetown, you have the Transform Freetown initiative, which targets improvement in waste management, sanitation, education, and health, and also takes care of disadvantaged communities and women and girls. You have many examples of local and regional governments having innovative and integrated approaches to tackle toxics, promote zero waste, and uphold human rights. So, to summarize, we call to our assessment, the UN secretariats need to work more with local and regional governments. The Special Rapporteur, unfortunately, in this report, did not tackle this dimension, but if I may suggest, that he considers this in further reporting, as it is very important to include, this dimension. And additionally, to ask secretariats, UNEP, OHCHR, UN Women, to simplify the language or to simplify projects in order to be more accessible for local and regional governments, which unfortunately are not aware of the core structure of the UN, of all the secretariats. They don't even speak the language of this panel because, as you know, this is a kind of a UN jargon. So we are trying to translate this, but it would be really good to get locally down to there and see what they're doing and include them. And last but not least, a very prominent Turkish mayor from Konya, mayor from Freetown, and mayor from Azerbaijan, not from Baku, but from another city, will be here in 2 weeks' time for the Forum of Mayors. So you're very welcome to this and also to hear local examples. Thank you, Diana.
Thank you very much, Camelia. That was excellent. We have here a lot of leading voices. We are very much over time. I have seen that maybe some member states, including Azerbaijan, were maybe preparing to deliver statements, but I think we have to close the event. I wanted to mention here that the summary of the event, that we have heard about a lot of resources that our experts have brought here, will be listed in the webpage of this event. You will find there the video of this event as well as the summary listing all these documents. And the discussion doesn't end here because, as I mentioned earlier, the Special Rapporteur on Toxic and Human Rights, Marco Boilana, will be here next week, and we will have various events that will address toxics and human rights. You can see some here announced on this page, but there are more coming up. So please join us next week and the following on these discussions. And with that, I would like to thank all the experts that have joined us today, the co-conveners of this event, the co-sponsors, all of you who have joined us here in the room, those who were following the discussions online. And we hope to continue these discussions either now, bilaterally after this event, or next week when the Special Rapporteur is physically with us here in Geneva. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much.